In the 1950s, America had 30 Betty Crocker desserts that housewives could not bake without. Cornflake macaroons and soda cracker pie appeared in every red cookbook across the country. These budget-friendly creations became the heart of every family gathering. Then something changed. One by one, they disappeared from kitchen, recipe boxes, and church potlucks. Today, most Americans have no idea these desserts ever existed. These are the 30 forgotten dollar desserts you could only find in old Betty Crocker cookbook. Cornflake macaroons cost 60 cents and turned breakfast cereal into dessert. 3 ingredients created 40 cookies: egg whites, sugar, and cornflakes. Housewives whipped leftover whites from angel food cakes, folded in crushed cornflakes, and dropped sticky mounds onto baking sheets. 12 minutes at 350 degrees produced crispy, chewy cookies with golden edges. The cereal replaced expensive nuts and added an unexpected crunch. Depression-era families relied on these when butter and flour ran low. Children grabbed handfuls after school. Grandmothers stored them in glass jars that emptied within days. By 1985, packaged cookies from supermarkets replaced the homemade tradition. Nobody remembered cornflakes once baked into America's cheapest cookie. The recipe disappeared when convenience replaced resourcefulness and kitchen creativity died with the red cookbook. Jell-O ribbon mold cost 60 cents and required 3 boxes of gelatin in different colors. Raspberry, lemon, and lime layers stacked into striped desserts that wobbled on Sunday dinner tables. Each layer chilled 2 hours before the next poured on top. Patience created the rainbow effect families expected at potlucks. The mold released onto glass plates with hot water run over the bottom. Whipped cream topped the glossy dome. Church ladies competed over whose ribbons stayed straightest. Children fought over the red layer. By 1980, molded gelatin became joke food, and ribbon molds disappeared from holiday spreads. Refrigerator space went to leftover pizza instead of 3-layer desserts that took 8 hours. The recipe vanished when Americans stopped waiting for dessert to set overnight.
Many of you have been asking where to find these recipes. We've gathered hundreds of them from the Depression era through the 1970s in our cookbook, Grandma's Kitchen. Complete instructions, pro tips in 10 chapters. Link is in the description below. Now, let's get back to the video.
Simple tapioca pudding cost 60 cents and cooked on stovetops in 15 minutes. Small pearl tapioca, milk, sugar, and eggs stirred constantly until thick. The pearls softened into translucent bubbles suspended in vanilla custard. Housewives learned the constant stirring rule the hard way when scorched pudding ruined pots. Served warm or chilled in small bowls with cinnamon sprinkled on top. Depression families stretched expensive milk into dessert for 8 people. The texture divided households. Some loved the chewy pearls, others called them fish eyes. Grandmothers made it every Wednesday, regardless of complaints. By 1990, instant pudding cups replaced stovetop cooking, and tapioca pearls disappeared from pantry shelves. Nobody stirred pudding for 15 minutes when Jell-O cups took 30 seconds. The recipe died when patience left American kitchens. Green tomato pie cost 65 cents and saved end-of-season garden harvests from waste. Unripe tomatoes sliced thin, tossed with sugar, cinnamon, and lemon juice, then baked under double crusts. The filling tasted like tart apples with unexpected tang. Farm wives created the recipe when frost threatened tomato plants, and throwing away green fruit meant wasting food. Nobody told dinner guests the secret ingredient until after they asked for seconds. The filling bubbled through vented crusts and caramelized at the edges. Served warm with hard cheese on the side in Pennsylvania Dutch tradition. By 1975, year-round grocery store produce ended seasonal desperation cooking. Frozen apple pies cost less than making crust from scratch. The recipe vanished when convenience replaced creativity, and Americans forgot hunger once drove innovation. Molasses crinkles cost 65 cents and became Depression's best-selling cookie. Dark molasses, brown sugar, shortening, and flour mixed into dough that rolled into balls and flattened with sugar-dipped glass bottoms. The crinkled tops cracked during baking and released ginger-cinnamon aroma through entire houses. One batch made 72 cookies that fed large families for 3 days. Molasses cost less than vanilla and provided a deep flavor that masked cheap ingredients. School lunchboxes carried them wrapped in wax paper. Factory workers ate them during breaks. The cookies stayed soft for weeks in tin containers. By 1980, chocolate chip cookies dominated American preferences, and molasses disappeared from shopping lists. Nobody wanted dark spice cookies when sweeter options lined store shelves. The recipe died when molasses became an ingredient nobody recognized. 5 desserts down, 25 more forgotten. Number 11 hides vegetables in chocolate cake. Number 17 takes crackers and transforms them into something nobody expects. Number 23 fries potatoes into sweet confections that vanished by 1980. Oatmeal drop cookies cost 65 cents and required no special equipment. Oats, flour, brown sugar, shortening, and raisins dropped by spoonfuls onto cookie sheets. The dough spread into flat circles with chewy centers and crispy edges. Each batch produced 60 cookies in 30 minutes total time. Depression mothers made these when white flour ran low, because oats stretched the expensive ingredient. Children ate them for breakfast when nothing else existed. The raisins provided fruit in households that couldn't afford fresh. Cinnamon and nutmeg masked the taste of poverty. By 1985, granola bars and packaged oatmeal cookies replaced homemade versions. Nobody dropped cookie dough when break-and-bake tubes promised easier results. The recipe disappeared when 9-minute cookies seemed too long to wait. Soda cracker pie cost 65 cents and fooled everyone who tasted it. Saltine crackers, crushed and mixed with egg whites, sugar, and vanilla, created filling that baked into chewy meringue texture. The pie tasted like pecan without expensive nuts. Depression housewives discovered the recipe when pecans cost more than weekly grocery budgets. 20 crackers replaced 2 cups of nuts, and nobody noticed the substitution. The filling puffed golden brown and crackled on top. Served at church socials where compliments came before ingredient questions. By 1970, pre-made pecan pies cost less than making crust from scratch. The cracker trick became unnecessary when pecans filled every grocery store. The recipe vanished when abundance replaced scarcity, and nobody needed to fake expensive ingredients anymore. Ginger snap crinkles cost 65 cents and combined 2 cookie styles into one. Molasses dough rolled in white sugar before baking created contrast between dark cookie and sweet coating. The tops cracked into craggy patterns during baking. Ginger, cinnamon, and cloves released a sharp spice aroma that announced dessert hours before serving. One batch made 80 cookies that lasted through winter holidays. Housewives stored them in tins between wax paper layers. The cookies stayed crisp for months in cool pantries. Children dunked them in milk until they softened. By 1985, pre-made ginger snaps lined grocery aisles and homemade batches became unnecessary effort. Nobody rolled dough in sugar when cookies came ready-made. The recipe disappeared when spice cookies fell from fashion, and America preferred chocolate to everything. Gingerbread cost 70 cents and baked in square pans without frosting. Molasses, ginger, cinnamon, and cloves mixed into batter that spread into 9-inch pans. The cake rose dense and dark with crackled tops. Served warm with whipped cream or lemon sauce spooned over each square. Depression families made this when butter and eggs ran low because oil and buttermilk substituted successfully. The spices masked cheap ingredients and created depth that fancy cakes couldn't match. School lunches carried squares wrapped in cloth napkins. Factory workers ate it cold from metal lunchboxes. By 1975, chocolate cake dominated preferences, and molasses-based desserts disappeared from rotation. Nobody wanted dark spice cake when fluffy yellow cake promised sweetness. The recipe died when gingerbread became holiday decoration instead of everyday dessert. Cookie candies cost 70 cents and required no baking. Vanilla wafers dipped in melted chocolate and rolled in chopped nuts created treats that hardened on wax paper. Depression mothers made these when ovens broke or summer heat made baking impossible. One bag of cookies became 40 candies in 15 minutes. Children helped dip and roll during rainy afternoons. The chocolate coating transformed cheap cookies into fancy confections suitable for gift-giving. Church bake sales sold them for nickels each. By 1980, store-bought truffles and chocolate-covered everything replaced homemade candy making. Nobody melted chocolate when pre-made desserts cost less than ingredients. The recipe vanished when convenience killed creativity, and Americans forgot dessert once came from transformation instead of packages. Halfway through 30 forgotten desserts that cost less than $1. Number 15, steams pudding for 3 hours. Number 19, bakes cake that creates its own sauce. Number 27, uses stale bread nobody wanted to waste. Refrigerator. Logs of cookie dough waited ready whenever guests arrived unexpectedly. Oat and coconut icebox cookies cost 70 cents and solved the problem of surprise visitors who expected dessert. The dough mixed quickly. Oats, shredded coconut, brown sugar, shortening, and flour. Then rolled into cylinders wrapped in wax paper. Housewives kept 2 logs chilled at all times. When neighbors knocked, 8 cookies sliced and baked in 12 minutes. The oats provided hearty texture, while coconut added tropical sweetness, without expensive extracts. Each log produced 40 cookies that lasted 2 weeks before spoiling. Depression-era mothers relied on this system when running to stores meant wasting money on ingredients they didn't need. The cookies emerged golden with crispy edges and chewy centers. Children grabbed them after school, still warm from ovens. The name stayed icebox, even after electric refrigerators replaced actual ice compartments in the 1950s. Sunday afternoons meant mixing fresh logs while old ones baked. Neighbors traded dough logs like currency at quilting circles. The convenience revolutionized home baking because dessert stayed perpetually ready. By 1985, Pillsbury slice-and-bake tubes appeared in every grocery store, and homemade dough logs became unnecessary effort. Nobody mixed dough on Sunday when Tuesday's cookies came pre-made in cardboard tubes. Leftover egg whites transformed into chocolate clouds that melted on tongues. Cocoa Kisses cost 70 cents and rescued whites from custard making that would otherwise get thrown away. 2 egg whites whipped with sugar until stiff peaks formed, then cocoa powder folded gently to preserve air bubbles. The meringue piped into small mounds on parchment paper and baked at 200 degrees for 90 minutes. Low heat dried them into crispy shells with marshmallow centers. Depression mothers made these when butter and flour ran too low for regular cookies, but eggs remained plentiful from backyard chickens. 36 kisses emerged from 2 whites and cost less than 3 cents total. The chocolate flavor came without melting expensive baking bars. Children called them cloud cookies and ate them by the handful. They stored in airtight tins for months, without losing texture or flavor. Grandmothers made them every Saturday and kept glass jars filled on counters. The cookies required patience. Rushing the baking created sticky centers that never set properly. Aunts brought them to holiday gatherings in decorative tins. Teachers received them as end-of-year gifts. The meringue technique required mastery. Humidity ruined batches and underbeating created flat puddles instead of peaked kisses. By 1975, Hershey's Kisses wrapped in foil dominated store shelves, and meringue cookies became forgotten baking art. 40 crushed crackers fooled entire dinner tables into believing they ate apple pie. Saltine cracker pie cost 70 cents and became Depression's greatest deception. Crackers crushed fine, mixed with sugar, cream of tartar, water, and cinnamon, then baked between double crusts, created filling identical in texture and taste to cooked apples. The chemical reaction between crackers and tartar mimicked fruit so perfectly that guests requested seconds before anyone revealed the secret. Farm wives invented this when apple crops failed or winter storage ran empty, but pie remained expected at Sunday dinners. The crackers cost 15 cents per box, while fresh apples ran 60 cents per pound during lean months. Nobody suspected the substitution until the baker confessed after compliments finished. Church social competitions included cracker pie categories where judges rated deception quality. Served warm, with sharp cheddar cheese slices, in Pennsylvania Dutch tradition, the combination enhanced the apple illusion. Children learned the recipe as kitchen magic, turning saltines into fruit through mysterious chemistry. Lattice crusts decorated the tops and cinnamon sugar sparkled across golden surfaces. Neighbors whispered the secret recipe behind closed doors like valuable currency. Husbands never knew the difference, and wives never told. The pride came from successful deception that saved money without sacrificing tradition. By 1970, frozen Sara Lee apple pies cost less than homemade crust ingredients. Breaking these cookies in half produced the snap that gave them their name. Ginger snaps cost 70 cents and required the sound test. If they didn't crack loudly, the batch failed. Molasses, brown sugar, ginger, cinnamon, cloves, and flour mixed into stiff dough that rolled paper-thin before cutting into 2-inch rounds. Each cookie baked hard with crackled surfaces that glistened from sugar coating. Housewives stored them in glass jars where they stayed crisp for months without softening. The cookies dunked perfectly in milk or coffee, strong enough to absorb liquid without falling apart and floating in cups. Children raced to cooling racks to grab the biggest ones before siblings claimed them. The spice combination hit sharp and warm with deep molasses undertones that lingered after swallowing. One batch produced 100 cookies that traveled well in metal lunchboxes wrapped in wax paper. Factory workers ate them during breaks, and soldiers carried them overseas during wartime because they survived shipping without crumbling. Grandmothers baked them every Monday and refilled jars throughout the week. The texture divided families. Some loved the tooth-breaking crunch, while others complained about dental danger. Mothers dipped them in coffee to soften edges before giving them to toddlers. The molasses provided iron that doctors recommended for growing children. Corner stores sold them 3 for a penny when families couldn't afford home baking. By 1980, soft cookies dominated American preferences, and nobody wanted ginger snaps that required jaw strength. Stale bread nobody wanted became dessert that everyone requested seconds of. Bread pudding with nutmeg cost 70 cents and saved day-old loaves from garbage bins when throwing away food meant wasting money families didn't have. Yesterday's breakfast toast cubed into chunks, soaked in mixture of milk, eggs, sugar, vanilla, and fresh grated nutmeg, then baked until custard set and tops crisped golden brown. The pudding puffed high in pans and released nutmeg perfume throughout houses. Depression mothers made this twice weekly because bread dried quickly without preservatives, and nothing got thrown away when hunger taught harsh lessons. Raisins stretched portions further for large families eating from single pans. Served warm with heavy cream poured over each square, the contrast between crispy top and creamy interior created texture impossible to replicate with fresh bread. Children fought over corner pieces with extra crust that caramelized during baking. Leftover pudding sliced cold for next-day breakfast. The recipe required no measurements. Experienced bakers judged by feel when enough liquid soaked through bread cubes. Factory workers carried squares in lunchboxes. Church potlucks featured competing versions where judges rated moisture levels and spice balance. Grandmothers added their own touches: orange zest, whiskey, chocolate chips that became family signatures. The pudding transformed poverty into tradition and waste into celebration. Halfway through these forgotten dollar desserts, the next 5 cost between 75 and 80 cents, but delivered flavors worth triple that price. Watch how one creates sauce while baking and another hides potatoes in sweet dough. Brown sugar instead of white changed everything about these Depression drop cookies. Brown sugar crackle cookies cost 70 cents and stayed soft for days because molasses in brown sugar added moisture white sugar couldn't provide. The dough required no creaming, no chilling, no complicated steps. Just dump everything in one bowl, stir until combined, drop spoonfuls onto cookie sheets, and bake. 12 minutes produced 60 cookies with crackled surfaces that glistened like glass. Housewives made these when unexpected company arrived, because speed mattered more than perfection, and nobody noticed shortcuts when warm cookies appeared. The flavor tasted like caramel, without candy making, and browned butter without browning butter. Children grabbed them straight from cooling racks when centers stayed gooey and edges crisped. Stored between wax paper layers in metal tins, they traveled perfectly in lunchboxes without crumbling. The cookies improved overnight as flavors deepened and textures evened. Depression mothers doubled batches and froze half for emergencies, when producing dessert quickly meant avoiding embarrassment. Factory workers traded them during lunch breaks. Teachers received them as thank-you gifts from grateful students. Neighbors recognized the aroma drifting through open windows on baking days. The simplicity meant children learned to make them by age 8. No mixer required, no special equipment needed, just bowls and spoons every kitchen already owned. By 1990, chocolate chip cookies dominated every kitchen, and brown sugar cookies became forgotten basics. Spices hit first, then molasses depth, then raisin sweetness in every bite. Hermit's cost 75 cents and combined enough flavors to hide cheap ingredients under complexity. Cinnamon, nutmeg, cloves, ginger mixed with molasses, brown sugar, shortening, flour, and raisins created dough that dropped onto sheets and baked into thick, cake-like cookies. Each one measured 3 inches across and stayed soft for weeks when stored properly in airtight containers. The name came from how long they lasted. Like hermits living alone without going bad, these cookies survived months in cool pantries. Depression families made them when flour ran low because molasses and spices disguised poor quality ingredients. One batch produced 48 cookies that fed large families through lean weeks. The texture fell somewhere between cookie and cake, substantial enough to satisfy hunger but sweet enough to qualify as dessert. Children ate them for breakfast when nothing else existed. Soldiers carried them overseas during wartime because they shipped without crumbling and lasted without refrigeration. Grandmothers swore by secret spice ratios passed down through generations. Each family claimed their version tasted superior to neighbors' batches. Competitions erupted at county fairs where judges evaluated spice balance and texture consistency. The cookies traveled cross-country in covered wagons and survived frontier winters. Miners carried them underground in lunchboxes. Sailors ate them on month-long voyages. Applesauce replaced butter and transformed cheap cake into moist perfection. Applesauce spice cake cost 75 cents and used fruit instead of expensive fats to create tender crumb that stayed fresh for days. 1 cup of applesauce mixed with brown sugar, flour, cinnamon, nutmeg, cloves, and raisins, produced batter that baked into dark, fragrant cake. The applesauce provided moisture without greasiness and subtle fruit flavor without overwhelming spices. Depression mothers discovered this substitution when butter rations ran empty, but applesauce jars lined root cellars from fall canning. The cake required no frosting. The top cracked beautifully during baking and needed nothing beyond powdered sugar dusting. Families ate it plain, toasted for breakfast, or warmed with cream poured over slices. Children packed squares in school lunches. Factory workers ate it during breaks. The cake improved on second and third days as spices deepened and texture softened further. Housewives baked it Sunday and served it all week without anyone complaining about leftovers. The recipe worked with homemade or store-bought applesauce, smooth or chunky varieties, sweetened or unsweetened versions. Budget-conscious mothers made applesauce from bruised apple stores, sold cheap. Nothing wasted, everything used, every penny stretched as far as possible. Church bake sales featured it wrapped in cloth napkins. Teachers received loaves as holiday gifts. Neighbors traded slices over backyard fences. By 1980, butter became affordable and abundant, and substitutions seemed unnecessary. Crumb topping covered every inch of ginger-spiced cake underneath. Tilly's ginger crumb cake cost 75 cents and required two separate mixtures, cake batter and crumb topping, that baked together into coffee cake perfection. The cake contained molasses, ginger, cinnamon, and brown sugar, while crumb topping mixed butter, flour, and more brown sugar into pebble-sized chunks that scattered across batter before baking. 25 minutes at 350 degrees produced cake with crunchy sweet top and tender spiced bottom. The contrast between textures made every bite interesting. Depression families served this for breakfast, dessert, or afternoon snacks with coffee. The cake required no frosting because crumb topping provided sweetness and decoration simultaneously. Tilly, whoever she was, became legend in communities that shared her recipe at church socials and quilting circles. Dozens of women claimed to be the original Tilly. Arguments erupted over whose grandmother invented it first. The cake stayed fresh for 3 days, wrapped in cloth towels and stored in bread boxes. Served warm, the crumbs stayed crunchy. Served cold, they softened slightly but maintained texture. Children grabbed squares after school. Housewives served it to neighbors during afternoon visits. Coffee circles demanded it every Thursday. Bridge clubs expected it every Tuesday. The recipe passed through generations with modifications. Each baker swore improved the original. Some added nuts, others added orange zest. A few rebels added chocolate chips after 1960. By 1975, coffee cakes came from bakeries or boxes, and homemade crumb-topped cakes became unnecessary effort. Magic happened during baking when one batter separated into 2 distinct layers. Lemon cake pudding cost 75 cents and created its own sauce without any extra steps. Flour, sugar, lemon juice, lemon zest, milk, and egg yolks mixed into thin batter that poured into baking dishes and went into ovens. During baking, the mixture separated. Cake rose to the top, while lemon custard settled to the bottom. Nobody understood the science, but everyone appreciated the results. Spooned warm into bowls, each serving contained fluffy cake floating on tangy lemon sauce. Depression mothers served this when impressing guests mattered, but budgets couldn't stretch to complicated desserts. The recipe required no special skills or expensive ingredients. Fresh lemons cost 10 cents each, and 1 lemon made dessert for 6 people. The tartness cut through heavy dinners and refreshed palates. Children scraped bowls clean, chasing every drop of sauce. Grandmothers served it Sunday afternoons with tea. The dessert worked equally well, warm or chilled, immediately or next day. Ladies' luncheons featured it in crystal bowls. Bridge clubs served it in china teacups. Children requested it for birthday dinners instead of cake. The self-saucing miracle impressed everyone who witnessed batter transform into two-layer dessert without intervention. Bakers felt accomplished serving something that looked complicated, 20 forgotten desserts down, 10 remaining. The final stretch reveals the most expensive recipes under $1. Cookies that refrigerated for weeks and pies that cost 90 cents but fed 12 people. Brown sugar drop cookies emerged from necessity when white sugar disappeared from pantries during rationing. Brown sugar drop cookies cost 75 cents and replaced refined sweetness with molasses depth that white sugar never achieved through any manipulation or technique. The dough is mixed in single bowls without any complicated steps or special equipment. Brown sugar, shortening, eggs, vanilla extract, all-purpose flour, baking soda, and salt combined until smooth. Then tablespoons dropped dollops onto greased baking sheets, spaced 2 inches apart. No rolling pins required, no chilling overnight, no shaping into perfect spheres. Just drop and bake. 12 minutes at 375 degrees transformed sticky dough mounds into flat cookies with crispy edges and chewy centers that stayed soft for days. The molasses naturally present in brown sugar kept cookies moist, unlike white sugar cookies that hardened overnight into jaw-breaking disappointments. Depression mothers preferred these specifically because brown sugar cost 3 cents less per pound than refined white sugar, while providing richer flavor that disguised cheap shortening, masquerading as expensive butter. Children eating these cookies couldn't tell the difference between costly butter cookies and shortening-based brown sugar versions that saved families precious pennies during weeks when every cent mattered desperately. One standard batch produced 72 cookies that lasted through entire school weeks when packed into metal tins tucked inside lunchboxes alongside sandwiches and thermoses. Factory workers ate them during mandatory 15-minute breaks while standing near time clocks. Office secretaries kept them hidden in desk drawers for afternoon energy slumps when lunch wore off hours before quitting time. The cookies required absolutely no special occasion to justify making them. Random Tuesday afternoon boredom justified a batch just as much as formal Sunday dinner guests requiring impressive hospitality. Practical housewives doubled recipes routinely and froze half the baked cookies for genuine emergencies when unexpected visitors arrived at doors expecting homemade treats demonstrating proper hospitality. The beautiful simplicity meant even completely novice bakers succeeded on first attempts without disasters. No creaming butter until impossibly fluffy. No complicated techniques that required years of practice and multiple failures. Children as young as 7 learned to make these cookies independently and started contributing meaningfully to household baking duties and family responsibilities. Neighbors traded cookies over backyard fences, along with gossip and gardening advice and complaints about husbands. Church bake sales sold them bundled 6 cookies for 25 cents. School fundraisers packaged them in wax paper bags tied with colorful ribbons. The cookies traveled exceptionally well without crumbling into worthless crumbs and lasted weeks without refrigeration, making them absolutely perfect for care packages mailed to distant relatives or soldiers stationed overseas during wartime service. Grandmothers mailed them monthly in decorative tins that somehow arrived intact, despite brutal postal handling. By 1990, chocolate chip cookies completely dominated American cookie culture, and plain brown sugar cookies became forgotten basics nobody remembered making or appreciating or requesting specifically. Vanilla icebox cookies revolutionized home baking by eliminating the requirement of immediate commitment to finished products. Vanilla icebox cookies cost 75 cents and allowed housewives to prepare dough days or even weeks before baking became necessary for hospitality or family demands. The dough mixed quickly without complications. Softened butter, granulated sugar, whole eggs, pure vanilla extract, all-purpose flour, and salt combined into smooth mixture that required minimal beating or special technique. Then capable hands shaped the sticky dough into neat logs, approximately 2 inches in diameter, that wrapped carefully in wax paper before chilling in refrigerators until moments demanded fresh cookies. When unexpected guests arrived at doors or children requested treats after school, the logs sliced easily into thin uniform rounds that baked in merely 8 minutes. No frantic waiting for frozen dough to soften enough for workability, no rushing to finish mixing before company arrived in driveways, no embarrassing panic when surprise visitors knocked expecting proper hospitality. The prepared logs kept reliably for 3 weeks when refrigerated properly, or 3 months when frozen solid, providing perpetual cookie readiness that fundamentally transformed hospitality expectations and household management strategies. Depression mothers relied heavily on this ingenious system when running to stores meant spending money they absolutely didn't have on ingredients they didn't actually need for immediate consumption. 2 logs waiting patiently in refrigerators meant never being caught shamefully without homemade offerings when neighbors visited unexpectedly for coffee. The cookies baked thin and wonderfully crispy with intense vanilla fragrance that announced fresh baking within minutes of slicing chilled dough. Children learned to slice logs carefully, using sharp knives, creating uniform rounds that baked evenly, without some burning, while others stayed raw. The beautiful simplicity meant even youngest family members contributed meaningfully to household responsibilities and learned valuable cooking skills. Responsible teenage daughters gradually took over complete cookie duty, freeing exhausted mothers for other endless tasks demanding attention. The cookies required absolutely no decoration for everyday purposes. Plain vanilla rounds sufficed perfectly for routine afternoon snacking, while simple sugar sprinkles or colored sugar transformed identical cookies into holiday treats suitable for special occasions. Casual wedding receptions served them completely plain without apology. Children's birthday parties decorated them elaborately with royal icing and candies. Christmas gatherings rolled dough in festive red and green sugar before slicing and baking. The remarkable versatility made them suitable for literally every occasion, from mundane Tuesday afternoons to elegant anniversary celebrations requiring impressive desserts. Creative bakers developed numerous variations by adding almond extract, fresh lemon zest, or cocoa powder to basic master dough, producing multiple distinct cookie types from one simple recipe formula. Chocolate and vanilla logs, sliced alternately, created attractive checkerboard patterns on serving plates that impressed guests. Bridge clubs featured them religiously every Thursday afternoon. Book clubs expected them without fail every month. Quilting circles demanded them consistently every week. The established tradition of maintaining dough logs became routine household responsibility, like washing dishes or making beds. Expected, automatic, completely unquestioned by anyone. By 1985, Pillsbury refrigerated dough tubes appeared in every grocery store, and homemade logs became unnecessary effort. Coconut washboard cookies earned their distinctive name from the characteristic ridged patterns pressed deliberately across tops before baking. Coconut cookies cost 80 cents and featured fork tines dragged carefully across flattened dough balls before baking, creating recognizable washboard texture that gave them unique identity among countless cookie varieties. The straightforward dough mixed softened butter, packed brown sugar, whole eggs, vanilla extract, all-purpose flour, and generous amounts of shredded coconut into soft mixture that rolled easily into walnut-sized balls between palms. Each formed ball flattened slightly under gentle hand pressure, then fork tines pressed firmly across tops in parallel lines that deliberately mimicked old-fashioned washing boards everyone recognized instantly from laundry days before electric machines revolutionized household drudgery. The distinctive ridges weren't merely decorative choices. They actually helped cookies bake more evenly by preventing problematically thick centers that stayed raw while edges burned. Practical Depression housewives appreciated clever solutions disguised as aesthetic choices that served dual purposes. The cookies baked to beautiful golden brown, with pleasantly crispy edges and satisfyingly chewy centers, where coconut naturally concentrated during baking. Coconut cost significantly less than chocolate chips and provided appealing tropical flavor without expensive vanilla or almond extracts. One standard bag of shredded coconut produced 6 full dozen cookies that lasted 2 weeks when stored in airtight containers away from humidity. Energetic children enthusiastically helped press fork patterns, turning mundane baking into engaging game where straightest lines won generous praise and crooked patterns earned gentle teasing and encouragement. The simple tactile activity kept restless hands busy during long indoor afternoons when outdoor play became impossible due to inclement weather or extreme temperatures. Patient grandmothers taught eager granddaughters the proper fork angle and correct pressure needed to create perfect washboard ridges without accidentally tearing delicate dough. The cherished tradition passed through generations, along with recipe cards written in fading pencil on index cards stained with butter fingerprints and splattered batter. Church bake sales sold them alongside other coconut desserts in tropical-themed displays decorated with paper palm trees. Tiki party trends during the 1950s made coconut cookies fashionable briefly before American attention shifted elsewhere. Hawaiian statehood in 1959 sparked renewed interest in coconut everything before the country moved on to other culinary trends. The cookies appeared regularly at luau-themed birthday parties and backyard barbecues decorated with paper umbrellas and plastic Reese's. Teenagers requested them for beach parties. By 1980, coconut fell dramatically from favor when younger generations associated shredded coconut exclusively with old-fashioned desserts their grandmothers made, and nobody cool wanted any more. Chocolate chips dominated cookie preferences completely, and coconut became ingredient people actively avoided unless disguised in German chocolate cake. The recipe disappeared when coconut became unfashionable, and washboard references meant absolutely nothing to generations who never saw actual washing boards used for laundry purposes, and the tradition died. Mashed potatoes transformed mysteriously into breakfast pastries that nobody suspected contained vegetables hidden inside. Delicious potato donuts cost 80 cents and transformed leftover mashed potatoes into light, fluffy donuts that tasted nothing like their secret ingredient, despite containing substantial amounts. Cold mashed potatoes mixed with granulated sugar, whole eggs, melted butter, all-purpose flour, baking powder, and fresh grated nutmeg created workable dough that rolled out smoothly, cut into rings using donut cutters, and fried in hot melted shortening until golden brown. The potatoes added unexpected moisture and remarkable tenderness without contributing any potato flavor, producing donuts that stayed soft for days, unlike regular donuts that hardened overnight into disappointing rocks. Resourceful Depression mothers invented this clever recipe when throwing away leftover mashed potatoes meant wasting food families couldn't afford to waste during desperate times. 1 cup of cold leftover mashed potatoes produced 2 full dozen donuts that fed large families breakfast for 3 consecutive mornings. The dough required no yeast and no rising time. Simply mix, roll, cut, fry, done in 30 minutes total. Children woke to donut aroma and never questioned what made them different from expensive bakery versions costing money families didn't have. The frying happened in cast-iron skillets filled with melted shortening that bubbled enthusiastically when dough rings dropped in carefully. Each donut fried approximately 2 minutes per side, draining on brown paper bags that absorbed excess grease. Some got rolled in cinnamon sugar while still warm, others got glazed with powdered sugar mixed with milk, and plain versions served alongside coffee satisfied adults who preferred less sweetness. The portable donuts traveled well wrapped in wax paper, making them perfect for school lunches and factory lunchboxes. Hard-working farmers ate them during field breaks. Construction workers ate them during coffee breaks. Teachers ate them during recess duty. The recipe solved two problems simultaneously: using leftover potatoes that would otherwise spoil and providing inexpensive breakfast that satisfied hungry families working physical labor. Grandmothers made them every Monday using Sunday's leftover mashed potatoes, establishing predictable weekly rhythm families anticipated eagerly. The tradition continued for decades until convenience eliminated necessity. By 1975, Dunkin' Donuts franchises appeared in every town, and homemade donuts became unnecessary effort when perfect donuts cost 30 cents each and required no frying, no mess, no grease spatters, and no potato hiding secrets. The recipe disappeared when Americans stopped making mashed potatoes from scratch and started buying instant flakes that didn't work in donut dough, and convenience eliminated the leftover problem that created the recipe originally. Nobody remembered potatoes once became breakfast, and vegetables hid in desserts, and waste became creativity. Caramel refrigerator cookies waited patiently in ice boxes until critical moments demanded fresh-baked miracles to impress guests. Caramel refrigerator cookies cost 80 cents and used brown sugar and butter to create authentic caramel flavor without making actual caramel that required candy thermometers and dangerous temperatures. The dough creamed softened butter with packed brown sugar until fluffy, added whole eggs and vanilla extract, then incorporated all-purpose flour and salt into stiff mixture that shaped into logs. The logs wrapped in wax paper and chilled overnight, firming enough to slice thin without crumbling. Each log produced 60 cookies that sliced and baked in 10 minutes whenever needed. The brown sugar caramelized during baking, creating depth that white sugar cookies never achieved. Depression housewives maintained multiple logs in various flavors, rotating through chocolate, vanilla, spice, and caramel versions that prevented cookie monotony. Children never knew what flavor would emerge from refrigerators when cookie cravings struck. The surprise element added excitement to routine snacking. Teenagers learned to slice logs themselves, taking over cookie responsibilities as they matured into household contributors. The cookies baked thin and crispy, with lacy edges that browned darker than centers, providing texture contrast in single cookies. Caramel flavor intensified during baking, releasing butterscotch aroma that permeated entire houses and announced cookies to neighbors through open windows. The scent became Pavlovian signal that visiting now meant receiving warm cookies with coffee or cold milk. Neighborhoods operated on unspoken cookie exchange systems where today's baker became tomorrow's recipient in endless cycles of reciprocal generosity powered by refrigerator cookie logs everyone maintained. Church ladies competed over whose logs produced most uniform slices and most consistent baking results. The skill lay in proper log shaping. Too soft meant squished slices. Too hard meant crumbling disasters. The Goldilocks zone required experience and attention that came only through repeated practice and occasional failures. Wedding showers featured them. Baby showers served them. Funeral receptions offered them. Birthday parties expected them. The cookies became social currency that facilitated community bonds and demonstrated caring through tangible, edible gifts. Teenage girls learned to make them before learning to drive, because cookie making represented essential life skill that demonstrated readiness for marriage and household management. Home economics classes taught proper log-shaping techniques alongside sewing and budgeting. By 1980, Pillsbury dominated refrigerated cookie dough market with tubes that promised foolproof results without skill requirements or practice time. Pre-made dough eliminated shaping challenges, but also eliminated pride that came from mastering techniques and maintaining household traditions that demonstrated competence and care. The recipe disappeared when Americans traded mastery for convenience, and homemade became unnecessary when store-bought worked adequately. 5 desserts remain in this forgotten collection. These final recipes cost between 80 and 90 cents, the most expensive on the list, but still under $1. Watch how crackers become pie filling and stale graham crackers transform into layered refrigerator desserts. Nutmeg logs rolled in colored sugar before slicing created festive cookies from plain dough anyone could make. Nutmeg log cookies cost 80 cents and featured fresh grated nutmeg that provided warmth vanilla alone couldn't match, regardless of quality or quantity. The dough creamed softened butter with granulated sugar, added whole eggs, rum extract, all-purpose flour, and generous amounts of freshly grated nutmeg that released volatile oils and intense fragrance when grated just before mixing into dough. The mixture formed into logs that rolled in red or green-colored sugar before wrapping in wax paper and chilling overnight until firm. Slicing revealed colorful edges surrounding pale cookies speckled with dark nutmeg. Each log produced 50 cookies that baked in 8 minutes and filled houses with rum nutmeg aroma that signaled holidays even in July. Depression families served these year-round despite colored sugar suggesting Christmas because the spice combination worked any season, and sugar colors came in more than red and green if you knew where to shop. Blue sugar for baby showers, pink for weddings, orange for autumn, purple for Easter. Colored sugar transformed basic cookies into themed treats without recipe changes. The nutmeg provided warmth that distinguished these from ordinary sugar cookies everyone else made. Freshly grated nutmeg released volatile oils that pre-ground supermarket versions lost months before purchase. Graham crackers crushed into pie crusts held vanilla pudding nobody could distinguish from expensive custard made from scratch. Graham cracker cream pie cost 85 cents and solved crust-making challenges that intimidated novice bakers without pastry experience. Graham crackers crushed into fine crumbs, mixed with melted butter and granulated sugar, pressed firmly into pie plates, and baked 10 minutes created perfectly crispy crusts without rolling dough or mastering complicated pastry techniques that required years of practice. The filling combined whole milk, granulated sugar, egg yolks, all-purpose flour, butter, and vanilla extract that cooked on stovetops until thick. Constant stirring prevented lumps and scorching. The hot pudding poured into cooled crust and topped with meringue made from leftover egg whites beaten with sugar until glossy peaks formed. The assembled pie baked just long enough to brown meringue tips, creating dessert that looked bakery professional despite simple techniques and cheap ingredients. Depression mothers made these when impressing guests mattered, but budgets couldn't stretch to complicated recipes requiring skills they never learned. The graham cracker crust cost less than pastry flour and butter combinations traditional crusts demanded. 1 box of crackers produced 2 pie crusts with crumbs left over for topping casseroles. Nothing wasted, everything used, every penny stretched as far as physically possible through creativity and determination and refusing to accept that poverty meant settling for less than delicious. The vanilla pudding filling tasted rich despite containing no cream. Butterscotch self-saucing pudding created its own caramel sauce during baking, without extra steps or special techniques. Butterscotch self-saucing pudding cost 85 cents and performed kitchen magic that impressed everyone who witnessed batter transform into 2-layer dessert without intervention. The bottom layer mixed all-purpose flour, packed brown sugar, baking powder, whole milk, melted butter, and vanilla extract into thick batter that spread into baking dishes. The top layer scattered more brown sugar mixed with butter across batter, then boiling water poured carefully over everything before baking. During 40 minutes in ovens, the mixture separated. Cake rose to top, while butterscotch sauce settled to bottom. The science worked through density and temperature differences that nobody understood, but everyone appreciated when spooning warm cake over puddles of caramel sauce. Depression mothers served this when entertaining guests mattered, but complicated desserts exceeded available time and skill levels. The recipe required no special techniques or expensive ingredients or equipment beyond baking dishes every kitchen already owned. One dessert fed 8 people for 85 cents total, averaging 11 cents per serving when restaurant desserts cost 50 cents minimum. The butterscotch flavor intensified during baking as sugars caramelized and butter emulsified into sauce that coated spoons and clung to cake. Children scraped dishes clean, chasing every drop of sauce hiding beneath cake layers. The dessert worked equally well warm or chilled, immediately or next day, plain or topped with whipped cream or ice cream that melted into sauce and created even more liquid to chase around bowls. Church potlucks featured competing versions where cooks adjusted sugar ratios. Lemon-frosted fruit bars combined dried fruit and lemon glaze into portable squares, perfect for lunchboxes. Lemon-frosted fruit bars cost 85 cents and transformed affordable dried fruits into sophisticated desserts suitable for entertaining guests. The base mixed softened butter, packed brown sugar, whole eggs, all-purpose flour, baking powder, and chopped dates, raisins, and figs into thick batter that spread into pans and baked until set. The lemon frosting combined sifted powdered sugar with fresh lemon juice and grated lemon zest into glaze that poured over warm bars, soaking into fruit and creating tangy coating that balanced sweet fruit. The bars cut into squares that traveled well, wrapped in wax paper, making them perfect for lunchboxes and potlucks, and afternoon tea gatherings, where portable desserts prevented plate-juggling disasters. Depression mothers made these when entertaining demanded something fancier than plain cookies, but budgets couldn't accommodate layer cakes requiring eggs and butter and frosting and time nobody possessed between work and housework and childcare and garden maintenance and all the other responsibilities that filled days beyond capacity. The dried fruit provided natural sweetness that reduced sugar requirements and added texture that made bars interesting beyond ordinary brownies everyone else made. The dates cost less than chocolate and provided similar richness and depth. Figs added complexity that elevated bars above simple fruit squares into something special that deserved pretty plates and cloth napkins. The lemon frosting brightened dark fruit with citrus that cut through sweetness and refreshed palates between bites. Fresh lemon juice and zest cost 10 cents per lemon, and 1 lemon frosted entire pans of bars, feeding 12 people. Raisin graham cracker dessert layered crackers with raisin filling in refrigerators overnight until morning, revealed transformation. Raisin graham cracker dessert cost 90 cents and became depression's answer to expensive icebox cakes requiring ladyfingers and specialty ingredients nobody could afford. Raisins cooked with granulated sugar and water until soft, then crushed graham crackers layered with raisin mixture and whipped cream in rectangular dishes that chilled overnight. The crackers softened as moisture from raisins and cream soaked through, transforming crispy sheets into cake-like layers indistinguishable from expensive desserts wealthy families served at formal dinners. The magic required patience and planning, starting afternoon before serving day and trusting that chemistry would work overnight while refrigerators hummed. Depression housewives served this at Sunday dinners when showing off mattered, but budgets demanded resourcefulness and creativity replaced money as currency of hospitality. graham crackers cost 15 cents per box. These 30 Betty Crocker desserts vanished between 1950 and 1990 as convenience replaced creativity in American kitchens. Cornflake macaroons that cost 60 cents disappeared when packaged cookies promised easier results. Jell-O ribbon molds requiring 8 hours of patience died when instant gratification became expectation. Potato donuts hiding vegetables vanished when Dunkin' Donuts opened on every corner. By 1990, nobody kept cookie dough logs in refrigerators